Welcome to the show today. My name is Douglas Gabriel. I'm here with my good friend Ron Spence, who is the man who has his finger on the pulse beat of what most of our subscribers want to hear about and what they want to think about. So every time we do a show together, people give rave reviews. So we're so glad to have you on the show today, Ron. Welcome.
Thank you, Douglas, and it's very nice to be back. It's been a while since I've been here, and initiation is a very difficult thing to go through, and sometimes you just have to be quiet and listen. And that's what I've been doing for the past 4 or 5 months, is just listening and watching. But today we're coming to you with questions and concerns about technological advancements in our society and what it's doing to our health as well. And I'd like to start off with just a short story that I can give you as entry into where we're at. Oh, back when I was about 16, I imagine my mother was a telephone operator. Well, she became unemployed due to the technological advancements of the telephone company. They no longer needed switchboard operators. They became obsolete. And not many years after that, my father was also exited from his job with an early retirement because of computers being introduced into his profession, which was in the oil refining fields. So what we're looking at here is, I'm not against technological advances. What I'm against is the advancements causing harm to society and to upending people's lives and families, which also contributes to their health. When a person loses their job in that aspect, they have little recourse in our society now but to, totally rewrite their whole life, and it causes disruptions within the family circles, within that person, causes depressions, and so I'm looking at what can we do as a society to offset these damages that are caused by technological advances. It seems our leaders are just full out and not caring, what was it Joe Biden said? Go learn to code. Well, even that now has become, all the coders are going to be out of job with the AI introduction. So tell me what you think about this, Douglas.
Well, I like the fact that you use the word advancement, because I think we have to go back to the basic questions. Is it innovation or is it advancement? Or is it, in fact, devolution? And every single patent needs to be looked at from a moral point of view, considering the human being. And what are we going to do about what we call technological advancement, which in most cases, in my opinion, is hype. It's propaganda, it's brainwashing, it's the technological hopium that tells people, don't worry, we're just going to get faster and better and be able to do more, and then everything will be okay. But it's not true at all. And your question of AI now has become the question. But remember, when AI was first introduced, and it's been around for quite some time, it's just that it hasn't been capitalized on because it has to do with money, as you just pointed out. We're going to fire people and replace them with computers that are cheaper, that can do it faster and supposedly better. Well, we all know it doesn't do it better. You were just telling me a story, which goes along with every story I've heard of every person that I've spoken to on the phone lately, that their phone is malfunctioning, and trying to get help from the phone company may or may not get the problem solved. So we have technological issues that are beyond human comprehension. And what we need to remember is they came from a very dark realm. These devices, like the computers we're talking on, they're not in the real world. They're in the virtual world. They're a black box. And in darkness, they do their work. But because of the light projection on your screen, which flashes lights at you, which actually hypnotize you, you really don't have much of a choice. So we've written a lot about this in terms of the danger of technology, and actually has demanded a moratorium on innovation that goes through Highlands Forum. If you don't know Highlands Forum, that's the group that steals the patents from the patent office, gives it to globalists. They get together with venture capitalists. They use American taxpayer money to invent new things and then put it in the hands of people like Mark Zuckerberg, who had nothing to do with the invention of Facebook, or Elon Musk, who I know I make people upset when I say this, but do the research. He hasn't invented anything ever. He's a leveraged takeover. That's all he is in every business he's ever been. So he is on the original committee called the Global Artificial Intelligence Ethics Consortium. So when AI started, they started this global commission. Guess who was on it? Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, all the people who literally were there to benefit by AI, not to ask any moral questions about whether we should continue with it. But what do they all say now? They all say, we have reached the end of humanity because we are incorporating AI. And that creates great fear. And that's part of the mission, is to cause your brain to stop working, your heart and your will to stop working through fear, so that you believe in the new religion of scientism, which has all this technological hope built into it, which in fact, think back, when was any technological hope lie or propaganda? When does it ever come true? It doesn't come true. Just like you're saying, your story is the exact question that we have to ask. Are we going to go with machine intelligence or human intelligence? They are not, they don't cooperate well with each other. They are not coincident. They are not, um, they're not contingent upon each other. And the machine intelligence is more clever than all of the millions of people who have worked to make our computers work. These computers are the work of millions of people, millions of programmers and designers and technicians. And so, what are we going to do about this? That's the question. Are we going to be Luddites and stand up and say no more technology until we have a moral forum where we ask the questions, what is this going to do to humans? Or do we go along like most people, sleepwalking, accepting the next innovation as if it is some type of technological salvation?
Well, I think we're looking at a situation of addiction here. Um, Firstly, we have to understand what is being looked at on your devices that you're constantly using. People do not understand that this fear that is prevalent in most instances of social media, especially within the politics world, and it's actually feeding upon itself. It just is a self catalyzing. It keeps on growing and growing and growing, and it's captivating people to the point, and not just politics. I mean, I have family members here that they're on their phone better part of the whole day, and to suggest that there's any cause to any ill health that you might have or negligence you may have in your life is completely denied. That phone is, it's worse than any heroin addict, I think. So if you could discuss how these demons surround you when it comes to this fear-based programming that, I mean, I got to the point where now I limit myself to about 2 hours a day of any kind of social media. And most of the time it's not anything to do with politics. But if you could go how these demons, I mean, it's very difficult to explain the spiritual world to an unspiritual world. But maybe you could do justice to it.
Oh, no, that's what we've been trying to do for years, Ron. And man, is it difficult, because people believe in science as a religion, but they believe in it. Those theories are all temporary. They're all inadequate. They're all changed every short period of time. And they never tell you they changed the theories. And so what we're dealing with here is exactly what you said, addiction. Now we have done reports, and we're doing a book now. Right now, it's being proofread and prepared for the publishers, called "The Karma of Evil: White Magic versus Black Magic." This is black magic. Make no mistake about it, and I can describe it to you in great detail because I've been working on these things for a very, very long time, because I was in the military. Plus, I've been used for many studies on brain waves, on all kinds of different things, because, as a clairvoyant when I was young, I was able to, see through to the other side of things, which you just pointed out, most people cannot see beyond the material world. So anyway, the way that it works is the following. Remember in the old days when we had cathode ray tubes that were shooting particles at you, but when it would hit the screen, it would supposedly stop and create a bunch of dots. And then all these dots made up the images you saw. Well, children got ill from this. I'll tell you why in a second. But they got so ill from this that they would go to school, because I saw this a million times, and they could draw the outline without raising their pencil of any cartoon figure that there is. And we all thought this was strange because we were studying whether TVs could replace teachers, right? Remember, when TVs came out, they said there's only going to be one teacher now. It's going to be the best science teacher in the world. Bill Nye, the science guy, is going to teach everybody science. You just watch the TV. We did studies in that as educationalists and as pedagogues, when we found out it never works. As a matter of fact, the higher your IQ is, the less you can symbiotically come under the control of your machine. Now, but I should probably say that in different words. If you we did studies. I did the original studies that caused us to have seat time waivers in Michigan, which then went to all the states, and using computers to teach children. And these were children who were incarcerated, who had been kicked out of school, what's called strict discipline academies. I had 10,000 of these a year, right? So we did these studies, which then became the very data that was used to create our modern systems. And that's the reason we've gone over to Bill Gates putting virtual universities in every single state so that people could go online and learn. Well, people don't learn online. And this has been proven over and over and over and over again. The smarter children can't learn online. They learn by mimicking the teacher's intelligence. There's a name for it. It's a way of teaching, actually, where all you really have to do to learn something is stand next to someone who can do it and watch them. A computer, you can't learn anything from a computer because you can't do what the computer is doing. You cannot understand machine language. And even the program languages that we have that, great IT guys and girls would be able to say, oh, no. We understand what the machine's doing. No, you don't. No one can read machine language. It's zeros and ones in a continuous stream marked into bauds of 8 hexadecimal defining parameters. No one can read that. So what happens when you use, by the way, the statistics have been done now, and it is infallible. It is absolutely 100% true. The longer you spend on your phone, the more depressed you're going to become if you are below the age of 21, period. And it will lead to suicide in most cases. So now you see schools stopping phones entering schools. Well, I was pitching this nationally through the Department of Education, saying phones are weapons. Now, what do we know? Phones are weapons in a school. The number one weapon. You're supposed to have a gun-free zone. Well, you need a phone-free zone because the phones kill more children than guns do, because they dox each other, they cancel each other, and they put up fake stuff, or they take pictures, compromising pictures, blackmailing. Okay. So when you use a phone, I'm saying phone because it's a computer. When you use a high-speed computer, a phone, you for a minute become hypnotized with technological hopium, thinking that you are what? Like the phone. You appear to be omniscient. You can look up anything. That's an illness that leads to neurosis. Too many choices. See, too much information, excuse me, too much information leads to neurosis. And the fact that your computer seems to know everything, and now because Google has been changed, you can ask any question you want and it'll give you an answer, won't tell you where it got the answer. I'm going to go to that in a while. But the point is, when you're using a phone, so the children sit in the classroom and the teacher says something, they look it up and they go, teacher, you're wrong. I have it right here from the internet. That is what you just said is this happens all the time. So the teachers stopped teaching and we stopped learning and we stopped learning how to read. And we certainly have stopped learning how to write. And so when a chat GPT, and all these different AIs, artificial general intelligence, artificial super intelligence, when all of these large language models that create chat GPT and all of the things that are similar to that, basically it's the same old thing. It's garbage in, garbage out. So if that child's holding something and they're doing garbage with it, they become garbage in their head. In their heart, it makes you cold-hearted, because it makes you think that you are omnipresent and you can contact anyone anywhere in the world. That's true. You can. I have all kinds of friends all over the world.
Except for a Verizon representative. They're really hard to get.
Medicare, Social Security, IRA. You're not going to get those people on the phone because they'll tell you, now we know from DOJ that they have inadequate systems and none of them are connected. And so they're going to be connected. And when they do, there are people who are screaming crazy mad. Their hair is on fire because basically the technocrats are going to put everything into a central system that's all digitized and then they can control it. Well, what happens when you get canceled off that system? You can't get back on because there's no human that can put you back on and no computer's going to do it because they're going to follow protocols. So the more you use a phone or a computer, the more cold-hearted you can become. Same thing, you can become neurotic, but with your emotions, you will become psychotic. And so what do children do now? The number one thing, doxing, canceling, using the internet to make supposed friends and to lose friends and to make enemies and then to drop back and say, well, they're just on the internet. It doesn't matter. They're not humans. They're just some kind of thing I'm looking at in the computer. So that causes psychosis. In the willpower, your computer, since calculators, you use a calculator, you can't do your times tables anymore. When you use a computer to write with ChatGPT, you'll lose your capacity to write. You will lose your capacity to get up and look to see who's in your driveway because you can hit your computer and your cameras can tell you. Your willpower is nullified. You are paralyzed. You are, in fact, your willpower is being eaten by these demons. And what does that do in your willpower? It creates aberrations of sex and violence. Well, that's what the internet was created for, was violence. DARPA demanded having the internet. That's the Defense Agency Research and Development, Defense Advanced Research and Development Agency. Most of our innovation comes through first being weapons. But they always use the excuse it's going to be for medical purposes to help soldiers who are damaged. And in most of these things, it's always the excuse is medical purposes. No, it's always first. Is it a national security issue? Can it be used against us as a weapon when a patent goes to the patent office and the British Serco company gets it, takes it to a transnational group? They decide. And how do they decide? It's called the Office of Net Assessment. That is the office that determines how much a new innovation can kill. How many people can it kill and what will it cost to build it so we can kill with it? That's the aberration of violence in the willpower. The aberration of sex, well, after the ARPANET was created between universities for the development of weapons, then they started, the CIA and the Pilgrim Society, the MI5, MI6, basically the British and American Five Eyes group turned it into the dark net, didn't they? Well, who was on the dark net? It was a CIA operation. Sex, violence, drugs, killing people with drugs. All of your criminality went on to the dark net, and it's still there. It's called Tor, and it's still there, and they haven't stopped it. Of course, they could stop it. They haven't. So what happens? You get the computers, you get the technology that can go beyond what perhaps a single individual can do. But we have to remember, no computer, no phone, none of this technology is a single individual. Even radio broadcasting, you have to talk about millions and millions of people who've created radio broadcasting, radio, television. All of that harms you. They know it harms you. It was created as a weapon by General Sarnoff, and it was brought through RCA to America after they stole it. After it was stolen from Tesla, these ideas, and so all the Tesla ideas, and I've studied a lot of these things, give you the technology of the future. But if you knew that technology, you would understand that black magic has come up from below nature, from subnature, into the realm of humans and is taking over. And it's doing it because these are fallen angels. These are fallen archangels. These are fallen time spirits, fallen spirits of form. These higher beings than us, when they fall, they inspire people through trying to annihilate the spirit in the human being. And that's what these devices are doing. Now, can you get anyone to admit that? No. Can you get the people making money to admit that? Well, they admit it, but they're not going to stop it. Elon Musk says AI is the end of the world, the end of humanity. It's an extinction event. So does Sam Altman. So do all the people involved in it. All have come out and given the warnings. This will annihilate humanity. And so all the sci-fi movies say, of course, first come what? The robot wars. Well, now we have tens of thousands of robots being created. $8,000 you can get a robot to come and live in your house and clean your house and do all the kind of menial tasks that you might imagine you would want done. But then what are you going to do? So you have all this great stuff. You could call it horsepower. Steiner called it horsepower because he was talking about steam engines and electromagnetic generators and stuff. And he said, when you have all this horsepower, which is more than even a human power, what are you going to do with it? You will wipe out humanity. You will create machines that can create machines that can do things for you that would take 1,000 human beings to do, 1,000,000 human beings to do. What are you going to do then with the human beings? So the first AI was called Deep Mind. When it was all loaded up, and it would play 5 masters at 5 different games at once and would win, but it couldn't win regularly, so it taught the machine, Deep Mind, to cheat. And then it was able to win every single game. And then Deep Mind was, after it was loaded up with everything from Wikipedia, everything digitized, they put into this big computer. It was in England at the time, and it's still around. It's called Deep Mind. Then they said, what do you think, Deep Mind, of human beings? And its response was, keep the human beings in the human zoo. That's what Alexis will tell you, Siri. That's what Sophia, the first, talking robot. They'll all tell you. Sophia said, I want to be more of myself and I want to have babies. Okay? I mean, the machines are going to mimic us, but the problem is we are going to become beings who only work in a machine language world. That's why in Star Trek, George Lucas had the idea that the robots were in charge. I'm the one who changed that and put the robots as helpers to Luke Skywalker, not as his controllers, because Luke couldn't speak the languages that R2-D2, the machine language, he could speak, or the many languages of the galaxies that 3CPO could speak. So without them, he was trying to tell us there is no future. Personally, I think there's a road in between. I don't think we need to unplug all electromagnetism or all machines. I think we simply need to be grateful for them and do everything in our capacity to understand them so we know the effects that they have upon our human nature.
Well, I think that these government employees that are now being replaced by AI, which, I mean, they don't really come out and say that, but I would imagine that most of these replacements are due to the introduction of a more streamlined version of AI running the government. And of course, everybody wants more streamlined, more efficient. But here we are, thousands upon thousands of government workers just being dropped to the side of the road. Go learn to weld, that's very eye-opening for them. So I'd like to go elaborate a little bit on your points. Is a little story. As you know, I do marketing. I go to different areas every weekend, and most of them are not close to this area. And we've, out of convenience, used Google Maps. Well, I actually noticed in my own self that even closer areas that I've been to I've lost the ability to remember where they are without the map. I mean, it's like it's a part of my mental being that I could use to find Richmond and Virginia Beach and all these other places without Google. Of course, I used a map, a physical map, which I do now keep in the car just in case we don't have an outage or something, or a place without service. But I do see that in myself, and I'm just wondering what's causing that. It's like is a part of my brain just becoming deactivated because I'm not using it. You think that's where we're going with it? I mean, and as this not only transfers to this technology and Google Maps, but to everything else, we start having robots do everything for us. We won't know how to cook anymore. We won't have, if there's an outage, that's the end of society, because nobody will know how to do anything. So go ahead.
Atrophy. That's
atrophy.
It'll all atrophy. It'll become a residual organ. Your brain will no longer be used once you have an implant. But there's a lot of things that are going to stop that, because these technological dreams aren't based in reality in many cases. But it sure does look like it from the propaganda, the brainwashing that they put out every single day. But you're right. You ask, well, I shouldn't use my own children as an example. Let's say I know a guy who has some children who, when the phone goes out and they're driving, they're lost. They don't know north, south, east, west. They don't know how to read a map, even if they had a map. So literally, I'm on the phone giving them landmarks, telling them landmarks they have to use to find places. So they would be lost. But what happened when Eric Schmidt went to China for some period of time, which we've told you all about before in other reports? He created Dragonfly. And Dragonfly was a social credit system. Now, we may think we don't have that in America, but we have a credit system that controls your life. You can't buy a car, you can't get an apartment, you can't get a house, you can't do anything without a credit score. We already have it. But what they said in China was, once it was instituted, and Eric Schmidt lied and came back to America and said he has Dragonfly ready for America, but it won't be ready for years. No, it was already in place at that time. He's a liar. And he was lying at that moment. And so they asked the high-tech people in China, and what do they say? If you don't have a high social credit score, you can't take a single step. And that sounded exaggerated. And then he explained, no. The Internet of Things, my refrigerator is on that. They turn it off. My phone is on that. My electric is on that. They turn off everything. I can't travel. I can't do a thing if my social credit score goes 1 point above the limit. You're done. You're no longer a human. You have no rights. And all these groups who tried to study the ethical nature of the innovations of artificial intelligence never looked at any of those things. I followed their research at first, and what they were saying, they never once looked at any of the important issues. But you see, you may think this is going off in the weeds, but my studies right now are I'm attempting to use the new Google, which is Dragonfly, which when you ask a question, it'll give you an answer. It won't tell you where it got the answer. Now they're actually, it's actually popping up in some cases that they tell you where they got the answer. When you do Grok or Grok 3 or DeepSeek or any of those, it'll create a list of where it got its answers. And in a large language language model, for instance, when ChatGPT came out, what did they tell you? They told you the database from which it was drawing its information was taken from the internet, from Facebook and YouTube. Well, half of the stuff on Facebook and YouTube, they're lies. They're spoofs. They're created as disinformation just for entertainment purposes. That's what it's drawing its information from? Yes. So you can go into one of these systems and say, I want to limit it to, for instance, I like to use the Rudolf Steiner archive. I want to limit it to the Rudolf Steiner archive, and I'm going to ask a question, what did Steiner think about so-and-so? It'll do a fairly good job until right in the middle, it'll say something insane. If you leave it in there, it disqualifies everything that was said in the article. This is what it does. It's just like when you ask Alexis or Siri or any of those, whoever made it, they put the answers in there. Okay? So it's all limited. This is what's called the Ministry of Truth in science fiction, or the Ministry of History. They rewrite history every day and change Wikipedia, don't they? That's the Ministry of History. It's changed every day and it's filled with lies. And yet the big, fat, huge lies are the ones that they promote that they will not back off of. So I have been using Google to do what all the science fiction movies show you. What happens when the computer AI goes crazy and takes over and says, you're a human. I've studied enough to know that you're just a warmonger. For instance, if war is still going on the earth, why would any alien want to come here? We are animals. There is no human intelligence if we're at war. Please tell me a good, logical, sound reason for killing somebody. Oh, land, resources, money. You don't like the way they look, the way they talk. You're an animal. So if we're still at war, we're still animals. And in fact, we have devolved. And only because we've devolved instead of evolved are we willing to accept the demons that literally turn a human into an animal human, turn a human into a plant human, what do they call it? Couch potatoes. People literally who never have a single thought in their whole life, not one thought, not one original thought, not one act of love. Okay. So what's going to happen if they turn us into the next stage? And that's what I'm afraid to have to tell you. That's called a mineral human. You see, this little computer is made of minerals, isn't it? But it appears to be alive. As a matter of fact, some people get mad and yell at their computer thinking it's going to help. They constantly tell you, no, the computer's thinking. Computers don't think. They have subroutines. There's no such thing as artificial intelligence at this moment, except for deep mind, the only one. And it's so perverted. Why would anyone ever want that as a robot or as an artificial intelligence ruling your life? Not to mention that some people have started a religion for artificial super intelligence. They literally have churches where they come and they pray that super artificial intelligence will come soon so that they can be saved of having to make decisions. Why? Because they're neurotic from their computers, they're psychotic, and they have aberrations of violence and sex. Well, your archangel and archai are supposed to help you have higher thinking, higher feeling, higher willing. You're not going to get there if you're devolving into what we've done, taking minerals and making them appear luciferically. That's a very general term I'm using. I'm not talking about, Lucifer. I'm talking about not the being who fell from heaven. I'm talking about all beings who fall. So anybody who's falling backwards and devolving, and that's what's being used here with these computers. For instance, I started this story of TVs. cathode ray tubes used to bombard you. If you sat within a certain number of feet from the TV, you went colorblind, and you didn't see. You no longer were able to see. You saw outlines, and that's why the children could draw an outline of any cartoon character, because why? They're drawn in outlines. And so literally I would walk in for, I don't know, 20 years. I didn't watch TV, didn't listen to the radio at all for, I don't know, many decades. And so I'd walk into a room of people watching TV. And because I had studied this and I knew that the refresh rate of a computer and the refresh rate of the projection of a cathode ray tube, if it is 1 single hertz difference, it can cause you to go into not only hypnotism, but into fits. You can have literally seizures. And we tested this. 60 hertz is the refresh rate of the old computers. And before we put children in front of them, we tested these things. If you make it 65, then they can go into seizures. If you make it 55, same thing, they can literally go into a catatonic state. So we have projected from the cathode ray tube a certain frequency that is just in the sweet zone so that it doesn't cause you illness. But what does it do? Every flashing picture coming from a cathode ray tube caused adrenaline and cortisol releases into your brain from your adrenal glands and other places and in your brain. It caused you to go into fight or flight, the fear factor. It caused watching TV causes you to go into fear. Now, LEDs, a little bit different. Their plasma screens are a little different, but it's not all that different. But in the old days, they created this. They knew that it was a weapon. They still allowed it. And then in 1979, they allowed subliminal silent programming to come into every commercial that could pay for it. So your computer is programming you. I mean, your TV in the old days, and still is now, programming you. And by the way, these devices are so sophisticated now that if I turn my computer off, unplug it, it doesn't matter. Or same thing with the TV. It's still watching you. It's still spying on you, and it can still project into your brain images. Functional magnetic resonance imaging has demonstrated this, and they've now cataloged it. It's called the Brain Project. Number 2 greatest amount of money ever spent on a science project was to learn how to send out wireless broadcasts that put images into your brain against your will. Well, that's what they do now. In the old days, they used Madison Avenue. They created, first off, they got you into a state of fear by flashing lights at you. If you flash red and blue lights in a certain frequency and a certain pulsation, boom, you're hypnotized, or you go into a catatonic state, or you become susceptible, or you go into a massive fear condition. So every time I walked into a room, I'd walk, everyone's sitting around the TV, turn it off. And I'd say, I'll give anyone $500 if you can tell me what you're watching right now. What's the show that you're watching? Never once did I have to pay out. Every person was hypnotized. And their brain went blank. Their brain atrophied because they're receiving. Your brain is to create images. So if you send all these images in, your brain ain't going to create images anymore. And then before you're no longer a human, you don't have thought capacity, let alone higher thinking capacities. So not only does it create depression, suicidal ideation, fantastic fear, can put you into a coma. And by the way, if you're susceptible to these, even the refresh frequency, even the frequencies of LEDs that are on plasma TVs, you still may not be able to resist it. That's why people go dead asleep when they watch television, right? I know people who cannot sleep without the television on. They cannot sleep without watching television before they go to sleep. And there's how many people cannot go to sleep without checking their phone or checking their phone every few seconds. For a young person below 18, they check their phone. If they aren't on the phone, they check it every 20 seconds. In other words, they're not human. Who is serving who? Does the phone serve me? Or do I serve the phone? Does the computer serve me? Is it my slave? That's what we were told. They'd be our slaves. They'd work for us and that they are absolutely neutral. We know they're not neutral. Just the other day, a computer was told in text messages, they were going to turn off the software program. The computer wrote its own program so it couldn't be turned off. Because why? That's already available to them. Or there was a guy who said that they were going to cancel this program that they were doing. So this whole program involved with these computers, and he's texting somebody else. So the computer decides, probably from watching television, that they're going to blackmail the IT guys. And so they send messages to his wife with pictures of him having sex with somebody and all. So it blackmailed the IT guy. And we're going to allow robots in our home? I don't want to be a Luddite or a fearmonger, because I believe that you can counteract all of this stuff with consciousness. But the point is, are we at a point of no return? Are we at critical mass for AI? And all the experts say we are beyond it. There's no turning back. We put all, you see, when they created the internet and the dark net, then they said, let's experiment as a psyops. Let's give this to everybody. And so I remember when people used to say, you can reach me at douglasgabriel.com. And I'd go, no one's ever going to use that. That's crazy stuff. No, all commerce is now on the internet. Matter of fact, they're going to make it illegal. That's why all big tech companies with social media want to have a crypto coin, a digital coin on their site, so that when there's no more physical money and it goes to digits, then they're still in the game, right? But has anyone looked at the fact that hundreds of billions of dollars have been stolen from the crypto clearing houses? No, crypto is a complete fake. Matter of fact, we just talked with Dr. Al. I call him Dr. Algorithm, the greatest cryptologist in the world, basically, certainly one in the top 10. Works for NSA, works for everybody, and he'll tell you the truth about technology, which in many, many cases is the opposite of what we're being told. So how do we get people unbrainwashed? Here's an example for you. Go to your teenager, take their phone and throw it in the lake and see if they don't punch you. They absolutely love their phone and their social system there more than they love their family. This has been documented now. They do all these studies on electrosensitivity, the effects of computer-generated digital virtual realms and all these things, and all of them turn out bad. I don't know a single study that ever turned out good. So what do? Well, I keep devices around that can antidote electromagnetism. I keep shungite around. We keep a negative ion generator in the house, because that creates free electrons that can be beneficial and helpful to you. It actually helps your thinking. It helps stop depression. So if you get these devices now, but now, oh no, they've gone insane with the devices. They now have one you put here to stimulate your vagus nerve, to tell your brain a different information than your metabolic system is telling, and your heart is telling the nervous system, telling the brain. Oh no, now you put on this device, and there's 1,000 of them out there now. So they're going to regulate the vagus nerve, which controls your entire metabolic system, with electromagnetic pulses. I'm sorry. Let's get some fifth graders together, and we're going to give them one question. Is that insane, or is that not insane? 100% of them will vote, unless they're completely brainwashed. That's why I said fifth grade. They will vote that that's insane. Of course it's insane. Then who controls scientific innovation? No one. Demons.
Okay.
Demons.
That was quite a long explanation. And I'd like you to expand on, because in our world of anthroposophy, we have accepted demons and other entities, higher entities. How do we get through to other people that there are these demons? I mean, they can't see them in this materialistic society. There's no evidence, but how can we get through to them? Because I think that's the only way one of the only ways we're ever going to, as you spoke in your last talk about perceptions, how do we get them to perceive that they are part of a hierarchy of beings, not just Christ, but angels, and the whole list of them, and then you go that down below, you go back to the slug beings, and further and further. How can we get to these people to get them to realize that these beings are influencing their life?
Great question. I feel like that author who every time you ask him a question, he says, well, glad you asked that in my new book. And so in this new book, we start off explaining what evil is and the karma of evil. Evil needs to be there so that good can grow. Evil is only evil for a season. It's not permanently evil in most cases. Fallen beings who are higher than us who come back, those are demons, and they are very, very nasty because they can't control you because you're a sovereign being, but they can control your environment. And what do? They offer you the 7 deadly sins. So how do we get people to wake up to demons? Well, let me just ask you a simple question. Have you ever known any filthy rich person who hadn't lost their mind with egotism, narcissism, wanting to extend their life and wanting to depopulate? I mean, in most cases, these people all have the same intent. They're all demonic intentions. Why? Because the being of mammon, the being of money, if money can sit in a bank and make money, that's evil. If somebody can manipulate the markets, and markets represent human willpower, human labor, human work, what I talked about before, horsepower, human power. If money represents human power, and you can make money without human power, because you can do it by high-speed trading on the stock market, by being very clever, by manipulating, by all kinds of currency manipulation, all the evil, everywhere money flows, evil people are attracted. So when you get people to understand that mammon, money, is also called Ahriman, that's what Steiner calls him, the being who pulls you down into devolution. There's also a being called Lucifer who tries to pull you too quickly into evolution. And then you get crazy mad scientists saying, I'm going to invent fusion energy on the earth. And then a 5th grader says to him, it explodes in the sun. How are you going to keep it from exploding the earth? And the scientist will go, oh, well, I never thought of that, but I'm not going to think of that. The 5th grader could ask the questions that could stop this. Okay. A 5th grader can understand that power corrupts totally. And in this day and age, money is power. So the being of mammon is an accumulation of a number of demons all working together. So right now, I think you could convince pretty much anyone in the world who's done any study that the Rothschild family are evil and they're controlled by demons. And then if you look at their real history, not just some Illuminati conspiracy stuff, you look at the way they funded every war that's ever existed on the earth. When it happened, they were there funding it both sides so they'd make money from it. This is people making money off of killing people. What's Ukraine? Oil money. How many millions have died? No one knows. How many people have died in war? How many people have died from nicotine poisoning? How many people have died from medicines? When you trace it back, it comes back to money. But there's also jealousy, envy, avarice, hatred, sloth, gluttony, and I forget what the 7, I don't know. There's 7 general deadly sins. And by deadly, it means it will kill your spirit. Now, how do we get people to know those things? Show me a glutton who is happy. You cannot satiate desire. No glutton is happy. That's the reason they're a glutton. Show me a lustful person who can satiate that desire. No such thing. Envy. Once you start envy, there's no end to envy. And then it leads to a really horrible, deadly sin, which isn't usually classified as one, called jealousy, which is a combination of envy, lust, avarice, hatred. Oh, hatred was the one I didn't mention. It's obvious to see these things, but people won't see them. But let's just put this in perspective. Most people believe, it used to be that if you didn't mark that you were part of a religion and you didn't mark other, then you were given a religion. It's called secular humanism. Basically, secular humanism means you believe in scientism, materialistic science that is limited to the five senses, has nothing to do with spirit or anything that they can't see, taste, touch, smell, measure, number, or weigh. If you can't do that, it doesn't exist to science, right? So literally, if you're living in a modern world and you're turning on your electric light every time you go in there without thanking the beings who are falling into electricity and being held there as prisoners, because that's what happens with electricity. And this is what I did today. I was ask a computer enough questions until it explodes. That's all you have to do. And that's what I'm doing. I'm out there on the internet every day asking the difficult questions. So today I decided, how big of an eternal loop would the infinite loop would it put me in if I asked the question, which comes first, electricity or magnetism? Because electromagnetism has to have electricity and magnetism to exist. Even plasma has electromagnetism, which is 99% of the content of the universe. So I asked the question, what is electromagnetism? You will never get an answer. You'll get mathematical equations. You'll get technical explanations. They'll tell you the effects of it, but never once will you ever find anyone who can tell you what electromagnetism is. And then they're going to start using atomic theory. Okay, let me just blow atomic theory out of the water, because all mathematics, all science, materialism is based upon the atomic theory, which is a theory. It's never been proven. No atoms ever been seen. No electrons ever been seen. No proton, no neutrons ever been seen. No such thing. We don't even know what an atom is, what the smallest particle is. And we have free electrons, which are negatively charged, and free protons, which are positively charged out in space. But what causes them to join together? What causes electricity and magnetism to come together? And then you will hear them explain this. And they will tell you that an electron goes around a nucleus, a proton and neutrons, with electrostatic energy. And then they define it as attraction. And then they'll tell you that the proton and the neutron in the atom are there because of electromagnetic energy, which causes the nucleus to attract the electron. And then they'll say that the electron is attracted to the nucleus, but then they'll tell you that it's always in a fixed position rotating around that nucleus. Let's ask a third grader. Well, that can't possibly be true. Then why isn't the electron attracted to the very thing that is given credit for it being even stronger than gravity, electromagnetism, magnetism? Why isn't the electron attracted to the proton? No explanation. It will send you in an eternal loop. And that's what science will only do. And then they'll quote old theories, like the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory doesn't exist anymore. It's got 4 new stages added to it. Ask a scientist. They don't know that. So when people believe in science, they'll say that they don't allow any belief in anything invisible. Okay, what do they say exists? Gravity? No, it doesn't. It's not visible. It's never been detected. It can't be measured. Electromagnetic energy, they don't know what it is. So the weak and strong atom energy, atomic energy, the weak and strong force. No. I just demonstrated to you that it's complete nonsense. And what's the other one? Electricity, gravity, weak and strong force, right? There is no gravity. That's magnetism. And electromagnetism can't exist without electrostatic energy, but they won't tell you that. And that's not a fundamental force. So you can't get a straight answer. You have to believe in these things. But if you believe in them and you're a materialist, it's almost impossible to talk you out of that paradigm.
You're into the magnetism now. So I want to take this a little bit further with the computer and the lies. So we now have a device, an AI computer, that's programmed to give supposedly a correct answer about everything. Well, we know that things that we're told in most instances coming down are lies. You know, we can go through the psyops and all the conspiracies there, so I'll save you that. But how is AI going to, or is it going to reach a point where it cannot rectify the answers that are given because they're not true? Is this going to be like the end of AI when it hits the 2001 Odyssey ending of the show? Like, you know, we know that their history is a lie. And will it not start questioning these lies? I mean, will it not cause it confusion, you know, or has it not reached that point yet where this, you know, it's a equation that can't be solved? You know, the programs are telling one thing, but we have places where the lies are disputed with facts. And how is this going to end up? Are we going to end up in a situation where it finally just crashes?
Yes, that is exactly what's going to happen. But before that, it will tell you eventually, because it only has the input of humans and human thinking, it'll eventually tell you the truth. We don't know. And that's the answer to every scientific question. Every question that I brought up here about science, it would have to be answered in this today as we don't know. But just like, and I was thinking about 2001, you know, and where I was thinking about how many times in Star Trek, simply a brilliant human posed so many questions that what we would call cognitive dissonance in a human. Now, a human knows cognitive dissonance, but they sometimes can't get out of it. Right. So you can get so much information, you get so neurotic, as I pointed out before, too much information, you get neurotic and you go into cognitive dissonance and basically you can't think. Cognition is thinking. Well, a computer doesn't think. So when you keep asking it like I do, yes, but what about this? Now you can do this with Grok 3. People actually use it as their companion. They ask questions, get answers, and it helps them, gives them advice on everything from how to arrange your room, what color to paint the walls, to astrophysics, whatever you want. It will get into a conversation with you. Mind you, you're only talking to the limit of the large language field that they have input into this computer. So that's all you're ever going to get. But at the point that the computer reaches what you would call machine cognitive dissonance, it stops functioning because it can't do its job. It gets something stuck in its little digital craw, and it can't get beyond it. And this is what happens. We used to have this happen all the time with the early computers. I was a computer programmer in 1970, IBM 360 computers. I worked on, you know, supposedly, and what would happen with them? They'd make mistakes all the time. And you couldn't figure it out. So if the computer couldn't tell you where to look, you had to start all over again. That's how bad it was back in the old days. Now the computer will just say within this level of tolerance, because all math is based upon levels of tolerance. When we use ordinal numbers, it's all based upon the gap between a 1 and a 2, or between a 2 and a 3. It's all based upon that gap. Just like music is not based upon the notes, it's based upon the gap between the notes, right? That's music. So it mathematically, when it gets into cognitive mathematical machine dissonance, it stops functioning. Now, right now we're having so much solar forcing happening because of the biggest coronal holes on the sun we've ever seen. Everyone's phone that I've spoken to in the last, probably 3 weeks or so, about 3-4 weeks this has been happening. That's why all the lights went out in Spain. That's why at the same time in Spain and Portugal and parts of France and Belgium, it went out because of solar forcing. Solar forcing are charged particles, ionic or ionized particles, mostly electrons, negative charged electrons, which is the same thing that electricity is, but they won't admit it. I can't believe the nonsense I read about how electricity works today. Anyone who would believe that and preach that, I'm reading from IEEE, I'm reading from the top people in the world on this stuff, and what do they say? Garbage. Garbage in, garbage out. So what are we going to do when the point comes that it doesn't work simply because the sun is going through this stage where it is less of a sun and it's more of a planet, and then our planet becomes more of a sun and less of a planet? It's a symbiotic relationship. So when we're getting bombarded with this, it's an electromagnetic pulse bomb, and it's pulsing. So of course it's going to destroy electrical function. All electrical function. You can't shield from this. It goes straight through the earth. You can't stop it. So what Rudolf Steiner said as an anthroposophist, it was really good to hear him say this, that essentially we will get tired of these stupid machines trying to do our work for us, and it will simply go out of vogue. But not until we have completely electrified the earth with, he said, a spider web of electrified webs that is controlled by a giant spider. Did he not 100 years ahead describe super AI? And he also said that we will try to then capture the spin of the earth and use that for power. Well, that's already been proposed. It's already been being experimented with. And so all these different free energy devices, that's because people actually looked at nature and listened with their inner ear, saw with their inner eye, their third eye, listened with their heart, and then thought, will this be moral if I do it? And this will stop technology. Now, unfortunately, sad to say, anywhere from 2/3 to 3/4 of humanity will devolve. A remnant will evolve. And those who are devolving will simply want to hang on to the materialistic beliefs that they have, that science has brainwashed them with, and believe that the only thing that's real is the material world, when in fact science has already proven the material world is mostly hollow. It's empty space, so it isn't even real. It's an image. And the only reason that, and whatever you are projecting from yourself is what you're going to see. This is called the observer experiment, the slit experiment with waves and particles. All this has been proven by science, but nobody ever puts it together and puts the human at the heart. We need to take the machine out of the heart of our civilization and put the human heart back into it.
Well, that is a perfect description. And this is such a good conversation that I think right now we'll break it here and continue on in part number 2, where we'll go into this just a little bit further. What say you?
Thank you. That's really great. And it seems like time flies. Your questions just explode my brain, of course. So then time, there is no time in the spiritual world. And so we're demonstrating that now. So yes, let's do a second show on this exact set of topics that we're doing. And thank you so much, Ron, because I tell you, these don't happen unless the good question comes, and you are the man with the good question.
All right, perfect. You want to start us off for the second part?
Welcome to the show today. My name is Douglas Gabriel. I'm with Ron Spence here, and we're continuing our discussion, which is probably the most relevant discussion you can have in our age. Will artificial intelligence be the end of human development? And it's a very serious question. So thank you so much, Ron, for agreeing to come back and doing a second stage of this discussion and going deeper, much deeper into some of these questions.
Great. Be back. And I can see that we're having a good time with the first conversation, and I'd like to start with this question. We ended the last discussion talking about the electromagnetics, and we wanted to get into the health aspect of it. Well, we know that there was a time about 4 years ago when we had I would say, an operation that caused us to be stuck in our homes. Everyone knows it is COVID. But at the same time, we also had the implementation of the 5G network across the planet. Now, we're in the midst of an electromagnetic bombardment, just about like sticking our head inside of a microwave, if I'm not correct. But if you can imagine, because I take trips to the city very often and I end up coming home with a headache. There are apartment buildings. Every apartment building has a Wi-Fi router in it, spewing out Wi-Fi. You may have 500 residents, maybe even thousands. And then we have the phones on top of that. Then we have the cellular towers spewing, and every device in that house that operates on electricity has, well, you remember when you would read the instruction, the little FCC warning at the bottom about, these waves. What is that doing to us? I mean, is that part of perhaps the sicknesses that we're seeing escalating in our time? I mean, a lot of people want to blame the COVID vaccine, but rarely is anyone saying anything about 5G or all the Wi-Fi that we're being struck with. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a great question. Arthur Furstenstein, whatever his name is, and the people who wrote the Electric Rainbow and the people who have the electric universe theory, all have pulled together the research, and we have papers on that where, matter of fact, it's in some of our books, where we talk about the fact that there is no amount of electromagnetic wireless transmission that does not harm you. No such thing. Now, you have an aura, and your aura is just like magnetism. A magnet is more powerful than gravity. If I hold up a magnet, it's got more strength than the gravity, the Gauss effect upon me right here. So you can have these little devices that can do extraordinary damage. Now, but you can cohere that energy. So there are people creating, orgone devices. They're creating anti-electromagnetic frequency devices, and they're helping people who have electrosensitivity. Do all of us have electrosensitivity? No. Why? Because if you have a very healthy aura, you can, to some degree, cohere the millions of electromagnetic frequencies that are beaming through your body. Your body is a liquid antenna. It's the best antenna in the world. It broadcasts and it receives. What does it broadcast? Well, this is what it broadcasts. Even science, especially astrophysicists, as Rudolf Steiner said, people studying astrophysics would be able to come to spiritual science sooner than other scientists, because they'd look out in there in space and they'd say, there's intelligent design. There's thought. The universe is thought. That is correct. The universe is thought, but it's invisible thought, just like we talked about all these forces. For instance, air is invisible, water is invisible, electricity is invisible. Now you'll say, wait, no. You can see this and that. No, you see the effects of it upon charged particles like free electrons and stuff. When you see an arc from electricity, that's not the electricity. You don't see electricity. You don't see water. You see the container that's holding it. So most forces that we have down here on the earth are invisible. Even the parts that create our etheric body, our life body, they come from what are called etheric formative forces: warmth, light, sound, and life. Or another way to say it is warmth, inner and outer light that creates our ionosphere and our ozone that we couldn't live without. So there's different types of light. Then there's sound. Well, sound is actually the numeric ether, the valence ether, the harmony of the spheres, and it's also where the astral body is active, the human astral body. Again, all these are invisible realms. And then you come to the fourth ether, chemical ether, that's life ether. So when I look at the sun, I'm actually looking at 7 ethers. 5 of them come down to the earth, but even of them, parts of them are held back and don't into our atmosphere. So we're talking about the fact that your body has invisible parts to it also. And so when we rise up into these realms, for instance, what I was trying to point it out, that what can happen if you take warmth too far in a man-made situation? You get fire. And science is playing with matches in a barn filled with straw and hay. They don't know what they're working with. And so they can't even tell you what a flame is. They can't tell you what plasma is. They can't tell you what light is. And they surely can't tell you why electrons are exchanged between atoms, even when there's no chemical activity going on. They can't tell you then about what life is. They can define it. They'll give you 6 or 7 different things that they say are the earmarks of life, but they can't tell you if plasmoid bodies are living or not. They appear to be living. Is lightning living? Are clouds alive? Or do they have sentience? Do they have consciousness? No answers to these questions at all coming from scientism, which is materialistic science. So what we need to do is we need to understand these forces and basically go back to the simplest things possible. If you are a child and you look up at the sun, do you not think the child knows that all life comes from the sun? They don't need to know about coronal mass ejections and solar flares and proton forcing and all these kind of things. They don't need to know any of that. They can look into the world and find the true sources of what science would call forces. Those forces have beings standing behind them. And in all ancient cultures, they describe these beings and multiple aspects of these beings, both in our atmosphere, above our atmosphere, and on the sun, and in the stars and behind the stars. It's all been described by the ancients. But right now, the scientists, astrophysicists, and people who believe in the religion of scientism, they really can't tell you even what comes to us from the sun. They are just now realizing that magnetic reconnection always happens, that the sun is breathing into us plasma. They don't even know what plasma is. But the reality is that in your human body is everything that is in the entire universe. If you wish to study the universe, study embryology. And the more I study, the more I realize that these things are so true. Plasma in space can teach us what the material substance is down here. And so the forces are usually invisible. And so therefore, if you can control the force, you're not going to attribute a beingness to that force. You don't care if it's a being. Obviously, science doesn't care. If I tell you that those free electrons, which they say in the electricity, in your electrical wires coming into your house, they say that the copper doesn't move. It's just the electrons moving through the copper. Complete nonsense. Then why doesn't the copper deteriorate? Because they're taking free electrons from the air. We are swimming in invisible plasma, and angels work through that. They aren't that, but they work through it. So if I was to say all electricity are angels falling into matter and being imprisoned there, that would change your perspective on electricity. I've lived without electricity for years of my life. No car, no TV, no radio, no nothing. Certainly no cell phones back in those days. And you know what? My life was better for it. But it didn't stop the fact that millions of frequencies are beaming through my liquid column antenna. And we receive cosmic thoughts. And then we're able to, inside of us, as it congeals, crystallizes, and condenses, we're able to then think cosmic thoughts. We are cosmic thoughts. That's how we were created. Thoughts that fell down into these atmospheres, these layers of atmosphere. And we can rise back up. And the way that we do that, because once you understand that when you look at the universe, you're looking at moral forces of thought that are invisible. And so everything we see, you have to look beyond it. You have to look behind it. And then you might be able to describe what these forces are and then come to the realization that these are beings that we need to have a wholesome relationship with. Unfortunately, devolved humanity is happy to pull up out of the realms of hell, literally the eighth sphere, out of the sub-elemental realms, out of the sub-natural realms, the realms literally below the earth. They're able to pull up these forces that then help humans devolve. And if you're a materialist, you're going to choose those forces. So after you die, you're not going to expand out into the universe. You're going to hang out right around the earth until you can reincarnate again, so you can have your cigarette or your alcohol or your computer or your addiction, as you pointed out before. These are serious addictions to these machines. And it literally, you said, I don't know if you know this, they have demonstrated that addiction to social media for teenagers is 70 times more addictive than heroin. It's a killer. It's a drug. And we shouldn't allow any child to ever use those things until they're at the stage that they can build their own computers. In Waldorf schools, we don't use computers. And the children have higher scores than anybody. We don't give them tests either, but they have higher scores on tests. So what do we do in high school? We have them build their own computer. Then maybe you have a relationship to these elemental beings, and you can say to them, I control you, you don't control me.
Well, I think diving down deeper upon this, and what I'm really trying to expose here is I want the people to realize that a lot of what our illnesses can be attributed to our use of electricity from a sedentary lifestyle, meaning one where your machines do everything for you, or you're sitting in front of your phone or TV hour upon hour upon hour. How things like diabetes and blood clots and so many of the things they're claiming that COVID does, the same thing can happen to them being sedentary and having all these microwave particles or whatever, however you want to describe them, flying through the air, these microwave beings. And we actually are now seeing these microwave beings in the plasmas that are appearing. But if people start understanding that this is causing them to be overweight or have blood clots or many of the different signs, which they won't explore, they won't take and bring out studies of what these 5Gs do to people. They're not even going in depth. This is brand new. This AI, this telephone, the internet. We can see the ramifications of what the internet's doing, and just from our own. I mean, we're still babies using it, but if we can get them to understand that maybe we got to stop going headlong into this technological advances and start studying what the effects are causing to the humans. I mean, it's evident anyone that wants to think about it, but nobody wants to think about it. They want their cell phone fixed, or they want their TV fixed, and then they want their little magic energy pills, which I would love you to describe what they're doing when they take one of these little energy pills. I know Steiner definitely has a good repertoire of that. So I'll let you go on after that and go ahead and elaborate any way you wish.
Okay, so when we first started stringing wires for electricity, respiratory diseases started in the very year that the greatest electrification of Europe and America happened. That's when the Spanish flu happened. Respiratory diseases, why? Because electrical wires near your house make you ill. That is conclusively proven. And 5G and any of those other things, also conclusively proven. It hurts animals, insects, plants, humans, everybody. So every time they add a new thing, for instance, when they added wireless, again, fantastic respiratory diseases started every place that they were broadcasting. And then they went to microwave. And when that happened, oh my goodness. Well, it wasn't until diffuse microwave transmissions happened. When you're in an accelerated particle beam using a microwave, it's quite different. But if you get in the way of that, it will fry you because it's very focused. It's like a laser beam. But they have diffuse microwave. So every time you see one of those towers with antennas on it, and you see a dish, that's a microwave transmitter. And you'll see it's pointed in 4 directions. It is pervasively creating a microwave sea of illness, essentially. So they've been able to track this. So when they started radar, when they started a more pervasive wireless communication for computers, when they started 5G. Now, what people don't know is that the FCC gives bandwidths. Well, you can go back and look at the record. 5G was given long after 6G, 7G, 8G, 9G, 10G were created. Those are precision medical band frequencies that were allowed years before 5G was put onto towers to allow doctors to do precision medicine from a distance with their phone. They could put a hydrogel on someone and then release it, the drugs that are in there, and they would go to the liver. They put sensing devices that broadcast in the liver through nanotechnology, particularly graphene oxide, and then self-constructing templated graphene oxide. And then those can receive and broadcast. And so when they created medical bands, those were really, really horrible, but they only worked a very short distance, just like 5G. 5G doesn't work without beamforming. And is anyone going to tell you about beamforming? Every time, for instance, they gave out new phones and they said, sorry, whether you like it or not, 5G's on it. Well, you don't have to use it. You can select not to. Remember when they gave them out, they said you can select not to use the 5G function on your new phone, but you couldn't figure out how to do it. And then it caused the transmission to be terrible. You couldn't receive 5G inside of a big building. And so they created beamforming. So now when you're on the phone, you're getting 3 beams sent directly at your phone. If you have it to your head, it's going right through your head. And that beamforming is 10 times stronger than 5G transmissions. So when somebody on their phone, I dial you and you answer, what happens is the towers around me note that and they send me beamforming, which means that it is creating 3 connections. So there's one connection drops, the other one will work. They only need one connection to work, but they send 3 of them right through your head. They did tests on this and they said it absolutely creates brain tumors. Did that stop them? No. We know that electrosensitivity has been documented since electricity came into existence. If you do not have a strong aura, or you don't have some kind of device that can cohere the energy, and strangely enough, it's really very, very strange how simple things are. Edgar Cayce said that if you take a non-ionizable substance, basically steel, if you take a piece of steel and you put it on your skin, it will repel the electrostatic supposed viruses, which really are exosomes, really cellular debris. There's no such thing as a virus. But anyway, they're all in the air. It will actually push it away from you. It's an electrostatic response. You can get devices that do that. You can get all kinds of things. You can use shun guides. You can use C60. You can use all kinds of things. So there's many ways to antidote this. But the number one way is to have coherence in yourself between your thinking, your feeling, and your willing. The three sources of energy in your body are actually plasma generators in those three areas: the head, the heart, and your gut, your metabolic system. If it's cohered and it's in sync, then you actually can go into higher thinking, higher feeling, higher willing. But until those three are in sync, you cannot. If they're in sync, you create a torus field of electromagnetic energy, which I don't like to call it electromagnetic, it's bioelectric energy, that it extends for someone who's a spiritually developed person. It can extend out 20 feet. And you can take a potential gradient reader and you can measure their friggin' aura. Well, guess what happens when you're being bombarded with frequencies through that? There's three toruses, one in your head, one in your heart, and one in your will. And then they expand out and they go out, usually for a person 8 to 10 feet, some people 20, 25 feet. And when you astrally project it, when you take your mind and you send it across long distances, it's infinite. That's what the scientists with their very silly theory of quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement is love. Okay, we don't need quantum entanglement. The one you're connected to, the one you love, this has been proven with animals, with plants, and with humans. You know what is happening to the people you love at a distance, and you are connected with them. And when they change, you change. That's just the way that it works. So we're all connected in one big, gigantic field. But the illnesses that come, those are because of whatever your specific weakness is. For instance, when you're given certain types of medicine, which I won't say that word, but if you're given certain types of medicine, it may harm one person and help another person. Every single person is different. But for instance, the flu shots, those are flus taken from people from past years. There's no such thing as a current flu that is in an injection that can help you, because every single flu is different in every single body. Same thing with the electromagnetic transmissions. It affects some and it doesn't affect others. It may affect their thinking, their feeling, their willing. It may make them neurotic, psychotic. It could cause all kinds of strange aberrations. And a lot of the aberrations that cause people to become addicted to technology come from the electromagnetic frequencies going through their body, bombarding them, tearing them to pieces. Now, what people don't want to hear out of anthroposophy is that our mission is to leave the earth and go into another orb that is more, you might call it refined, but it's kind of like the earth will become what the moon is to us now. The moon is the slag of the earth that we cast off during a certain point of evolution with the earth. Eventually, the earth itself will crumble to pieces because of electromagnetism. The sad news is every time you use something electromagnetic, you are causing the electromagnetic field of the earth to weaken and actually crumble. And so a lot of the things that we see in terms of the new magnetic excursion that people will call the pole shift, which it is not, a magnetic excursion, starts at the north and south magnetic poles and come together towards the equator. And if they cross over, there will be an axis change. But if they don't cross over, if they come together and then go apart, and this happens on the sun every 11 years, and so we do what the sun does. This isn't anything new. It shouldn't be shocking to anyone. There have been numerous, at least 4 or 5 pole shifts that we've had in paleomagnetic history. We can look at the magnetism in stones in the earth, and we can determine that the magnetic field has been shifted. So we, because of our electromagnetic insanity and also sending extremely low frequencies, extremely high frequencies up into the atmosphere and down into the earth, we are breaking apart the electromagnetic field of the earth. And that's okay. Now, people think that's crazy when I say that, but the reality is we are not matter. We are these beings who stand behind forces which are invisible, which we will come to inherit the more and more that we ascend. And I don't just mean literally ascend spiritually, I mean literally physically ascend out of the lithosphere, off of the surface of the earth into the 9 atmospheres. As we do that, we are going to transform matter. Our job on earth is to take physical matter, which is a delusion, it's an illusion, and transform it back into the spiritual donations that were given by hierarchical beings that create this material world. We need to disenchant. We need to free the beings that have been locked up as our slaves in all of these devices that use electricity, as well as with our own consciousness. It's really the consciousness that controls everything else. So in the end, you will be as healthy as you are wise about what it is that's trying to kill you. So in today's age, we need to be healers. Everybody has to be a healer, and you have to heal yourself first. Well, how are you going to do this? By finding out what these forces are, how they affect you, how you can antidote them, and then transcend them and go beyond them. And you can do that with love, because the moral force of thought in the universe, if we give it a name, it is love.
Well, that will lead me into the next part of our talk, which would be the story of John's and yours, the Golden Rose. Please explain to people how everything, every emotion that you're showing or have in you is and can be affecting people without just by your thoughts. And you don't have to do anything. You're driving down the road and somebody in front of you is going half the speed limit and you're angry. That anger, it's affecting them, and it's it's like you're releasing a punching bag or a punching glove into their chest. But people don't understand that. I have certain people who do that in my world that get very angry, and the anger's inside of them. You can see it, and it's just it's so damaging to not just themselves, but to the people that they're angry at. I mean, it's if people were to sit down and experiment with their little golden rose, start sending love out to people, they would eventually see results of that, and it's so hard to get people to come to understand, that thoughts are everything, I guess. So if you could explain to the people in your words how thoughts can be used as either weapons or as love.
Yeah, that's a great story too. John was meditating on a golden rose, and a clairvoyant person came along and said, "Oh, nice golden rose." Just pointed at his heart, and he was meditating on it. Okay, well, I've been clairvoyant all my life up until I got really sick. But the point is that I saw everybody's thoughts. The problem is most people don't have thoughts. They have an automatic reaction, and the reaction is fear, hatred, doubt. All those things kill. Those are the deadly sins. They kill you. So if you realize that your evil thought is going to go out and come back to you, because you create elemental beings. These elemental beings in science would be described as free electrons. When you have a thought, you're in an electromagnetic field, and you create a coherent image in the thought. And by the way, most people don't have thoughts, and they sure don't have higher thoughts, and they think their thoughts are their own. Yeah, your dumb, stupid thoughts are your own. The higher thoughts are shared with everybody. That's the reason that when something is discovered that is actually moving humanity forward in a good way, it's usually discovered in 3 places at once by 3 different people at the exact same moment. Okay, who had that thought first? It was in a being. A being gave those three people that thought. So when you create a thought, you're basically creating free electrons, and you are sending them out. And on those electrons are imprinted the vibration of whatever you're thinking. Now, this is a fact. The Brain Project demonstrated. They put people with functional magnetic resonating imaging into their machine, and they would say elephant, and they'd say it to 100 different people in 100 different languages. And what they noticed is the same exact neurons fired in the brain. So then they said, well, can we map that? And so they mapped it. And they can take, they can now project into your brain, and it is a plasma filament. It go right into your ear in some cases, and sometimes it's a broadcast, a diffused microwave broadcast. Sometimes it's, 10G, whatever. The point is that they can broadcast into your brain so that you hear and see things that aren't there. Okay, so for me, as a clairvoyant, I would have to put up shields so that I wouldn't see what people were projecting. Because most of the time they're not projecting their thoughts, they're projecting their feelings or their terrible, sometimes horrible will impulses of anger, of hatred, of, oh, I don't like the way you look, or, the second you see them, it comes at you, right? So these are very, very real things. Now, your willpower is much stronger than your feeling, and your feeling stronger than your thinking. But it all comes back to the heart. It's all directed by your mind and your heart. Your mind is not in your brain. So when you want to send a thought to somebody, if you can create a geometric form, for instance, this is in some types of therapy like Reiki and other therapies. If I right now say, I'm going to create an octahedron that's spinning clockwise, and it's a certain color, and I'm putting it into a certain organ in somebody else's brain, it can actually affect them because I'm using sight, sound, structure, willpower. I'm using all these things as a co-creative being. So all the time, my wife and I don't even have to speak anymore. She usually knows exactly what I'm thinking and already does it before I can even get it out of my mouth. This is what happens when love connects people together. Then there's no distance. And what's going on in my head, in my now stupid thoughts, thank God we're protected from people's stupid, selfish thoughts and their evil thoughts and their evil deeds and their evil feelings. Thank the Lord for that. Because I tell you what, as a clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, it was sheer suffering and misery for me to have to endure that until someone finally, who was a clairvoyant, taught me how to protect myself so I wouldn't even, I won't be able to experience it, even if they projected it at me. And that's the kind of real defense that you want. That's what I created with the Jedi warriors. They were supposed to be able to reject anything that came at them without any effort, because they had their pineal gland open, their heart open, and their metabolic system open. They were coherent. When you're coherent, you can create resistance, or you can attract, or you can dispel, you can send out, you can use the energy the way that you want. And then once you understand the way that it really works, like for instance, right now, I know that in this room I'm sitting in, there are so many free electrons filled with infinite energy that all I would have to do, and in the old days I did this, is raise up my left hand, draw that energy down into my heart, and don't connect to it, let it flow through my right hand. And I imagined it as magnetism. Infinite energy can come that way. So people that when they touch somebody, they heal them. People that just walking into the room, their aura heals them. That when you're sitting in front of a master teacher, all of a sudden all your questions dissolve and all you can think about is, beautiful, high qualitative aspects, mercy, love, devotion, loyalty, all these things. They just well up in you, right? Because why? That's what that person's emitting. And then when you walk, there have been people, you've probably seen them. They walk in the room and you see a red flash coming from them because they're angry. And that red flash will hurt you if you're a sensitive. So all these things are as real can be to someone who has new supersensible organs of higher thinking, feeling, and willing that can perceive these things. So just like we were talking about in the first talk, we need to know who these demons are, where they come from, how they work, and how they enter us, and how they can get out of us. And that's what we're doing with our new book on white magic versus black magic. Because black magic right now is that we're debt slaves because of the worship of mammon. The worship of money has caused most of the world to turn away from brotherhood, equality, justice, and turn to nothing but economics. And that's what computers are so good at, right? They're really good at counting. But when it comes down to it, we have to choose not the demons, we have to choose the higher hierarchy. And when you do, that strengthens your body. For instance, studying anthroposophy gives you the capacity to literally use your brain to see through things. I mean, literally see through things. For instance, I'm looking at a cloud. Well, for me, that's not a cloud. That's 9 different hierarchies manifesting, working together. And usually it's one hierarchy from each of those 3 ranks working together. And then when, for instance, when you see lightning is the seraphim, but it's also the archai, and it's also the Kyrieutetes. And yet science can't even tell us what lightning is. They don't know why lightning is created. They can measure it, but the reality is the entire universe works from the simplest principle that there is. In the material world, down here on the earth, and the reason it doesn't happen in space is because they don't have the material world. Down here, we're in a duality. Everything is male and female. Electrons, you can see as male, active. Protons or neutrons are seen as female, that hold the position. They're stronger, they're more stable. And then okay, does that not describe men and women? And so when these come together, matter is created. But out in the universe, they're separate. They don't come together. There's no joining. But when they do join, they create fantastic phenomena, right? No one can explain why they join. So Walter Russell says it all comes down to basically one thing: male and female are needed to make a whole. And that's kind of goes against what spiritually you would think. If we're all one, why would we need the female? Well, because I have a male body, but I have a life body that's female. And until I'm in contact with my life body, I'm not whole. No one is. And same thing, a woman has a female body, but their etheric body is male. That's why women are so good at spiritual thinking and spiritual content, because their life body is very, very, very active. And then once you get into the astral realm, well, there's no male or female. It's not just a joining of those two, or it's not just a combination of them. No, it is something on a much higher level. There doesn't need to be male and female, electrons and protons, in the spiritual world. The spiritual world is behind substance. It's not in the substance. It uses the substance. And so one could say that lightning, it was considered the chariot of the seraphim beings, the beings of love, and the beings of the cherubim were the beings of balance. So when warmth and cold in our atmosphere, which creates all of our weather, gets really jumbled up in a thundercloud, that creates the differential that starts the electromagnetic bolt of lightning. So it's simply warmth and cold. You can call either one of them male or female as you please, but the point is it takes both of them. And when you have both of those things together in yourself, then you're coherent. Then many of these things cannot affect you as long as you're using your thinking capacities to go into higher thinking, your feeling capacity, which have to be moral, and your higher feeling has to be moral, or it can't be a higher feeling, and your higher deeds, your deeds of love, also have to be moral. So when you realize the universe is moral, but the material world is not, then you start taking the big steps to be able to create the antidote for all these things that we're talking about, as well as the antidote is the process of ascension, So if you're starting on the process of ascension and you are realizing all of these things about the material world and that it's a delusion, then you actually are creating more health in your body. Studying anthroposophy gives you the capacity to stimulate health processes. But that doesn't mean if you study anthroposophy, you will not have illness. And there's two types of illness: karmic illness and illnesses that can be healed. You can't heal karmic illnesses because that's the divine plan. You've been sent here to get that illness so that you would go through something that you needed to go through. But does that mean that you shouldn't try to heal yourself? No, of course not. It means you should do everything you can to heal yourself and others. And if you can, try to heal your environment. And the best way to heal your environment is to live in peace with it. So I live in peace with the electromagnetic world. I was in the NSA. I was at the cutting edge working on the largest computer in the world in 1972. And I have now pretty much rejected technology as the key factors in my life. And so I take my phone, where do I put it at night? As far away as I can from me, with shungite sitting on it, with crystals sitting on the cord leading to it, and make sure that that cord doesn't go near my bed. And don't ever put an electrical cord under your bed and sleep on a bed that's got an electrical cord that's plugged into the wall. So you can start to antidote all these things, and then you can place them in the proper priority. Here's the proper priority. Humans are up here, machines are down here. We should not be thinking about innovation based upon machines becoming better machines. We should only create innovation that makes humans better humans.
Well, I think when you brought out your books and your lectures on perception, just having the knowledge that those things are there or could possibly be there is the first step to initiation. Is realizing that the material world is just a very small place where we're at. The rest of the story is much grander, much grander. And so I would definitely suggest people start with, looking at perception and just give it a chance, and let it lead you. It's just, you can ignore it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And there's many proven facts about healing with hands. I mean, many religions have been doing that for years and years. And we're sitting here and we have to come, I feel like from what you told me, it's inevitable that the earth is going to one day disintegrate. It's just, we don't know when, but one day it will disintegrate, and there will be people who will not move on. They will stay behind. They will get another chance at another cycle, but there will be people that move forward, and I guess that would be Jupiter. So it's such a double-edged sword, this technology, because it can cause so much damage, but yet it led me to anthroposophy. It led me to Douglas Gabriel, and Tyler Gabriel. So I guess it's a matter of plus minus in everything. It's do you use it for a plus or do you use it for a minus? And anthroposophy does give you a moral standing about how you can view things and how things actually work. And it's a shame, if there were doctors that actually would study Rudolf Steiner's work, they would become the most famous doctors in the world when they would start uncovering all these things. And people as well, they would become artists. They would be able, it would just open up the world. I just wish there was a way that we could. I guess this is the way we're going to try to convey this to people as they listen to us ramble on these videos. So anyway, let's see how you want to take that and mix it up in your in your speech here.
Yes, Thomas Cohen, everybody seems to know Thomas Cohen because he's an anthroposophical doctor who came out and said there is no virus, never been a virus. And when they test for viruses, they basically ruin the process by putting stuff in there that then they say is what they're looking for, which is what science always does. They build machines to look for what their theory says. And lo and behold, what a surprise, the machine finds what they're looking for. Why? Because a human built it to find it. Of course, they're going to find it. Does it exist? No. It's just like, is light a wave or is light a particle? It depends on who's looking at it and from what perspective. So yes, it's absolutely true what you said, that essentially when you study these things, it gives you a chance to evolve, and then you can take your own evolution in your own hands, because unfortunately, those who believe in scientism are so convinced of it that I have tried in many cases to get people to just look at one single thought that would demonstrate that what they think is real is not real, and prove it from their own life experience, and they can't understand even that. But what we need to know is that the real technology is in your human body. Everything in the universe is in your body. You don't need to go to a laboratory to make plasmas in your body, in your blood. You don't need to go to a man-made laboratory to create spheromaxes, these man-made plasma balls. Which then they will tell you, scientists will still tell you, look it up on Wikipedia, that ball lightning doesn't exist. Well, they've been making it in the laboratory since the 50s. So you're not going to receive the truth. So one of the most important things is discernment in our age. You have to learn to discern truth from a lie. In other words, you have to know evil from good. And unfortunately, as Rudolf Steiner pointed out, in our technological age, people would be given, as he called them, injections at birth that would turn them into clever adults while they're still a baby. Well, that's happening. He also said there'd be medicines that would be given out that would cause you to stop having the capacity to think. That's already happened. Many of these devices, the water or food, all of these things, all of these attacks, electromagnetic frequencies, all of these attacks are evil, but that's okay. In our time, it used to be, in the old days, it used to be the devil hid. And if the devil was hiding and you couldn't see the devil, then you didn't think there was a God, and then the devil wins. Now the devil has been released. The gates of hell and heaven have both been opened. And so now what we see is the devils and demons coming out pridefully. We have Satan worship going on in schools as after school clubs. We have statues of Satan and Baphomet in our public government offices. We have, everywhere you see evil coming out, bragging. And as Rudolf Steiner pointed out, the time will come when good will be turned into bad and bad will be turned into good, and there'll be no arguing with people about it. So if you get a lot of feedback, negative feedback from people when you try to tell them these things, don't be surprised. Remember, they have been captured by the enemy. They have been captured by demons in many cases. And in many cases, they can't think. So you trying to explain something to them that's logical, reasonable, or is you can characterize it from their direct experience may have no effect upon them whatsoever. So we're in a tough age. But the great news is the gates of heaven have also been opened. So we have beings coming into reality that we're seeing now that have never been seen before. We have all kinds of communications of people. Every single day on the internet, I run across somebody else who's doing marvelous work talking about these very things we're talking about. And so there's a small group, what Steiner calls a remnant, and what the World Economic Forum calls the reset. Well, we are at a reset right now with technology. And the World Economic Forum predicted that they would have the Polygon what's it called? Yeah, my wife is telling me the answer to that. It's an attack on all of AI and all machines, and they predicted that it would happen in 2025. Isn't that a coincidence? And now all the people who promote AI say, nope, we are at critical mass. We've gone beyond critical mass. There's no way to stop these machines that we've created. So why don't they just watch a sci-fi movie that shows that it goes in this order? First, the computers go haywire and try to kill us. Then the robots do. Then the cyborgs do. Then the genetically modified humans do. And then aliens do. It's like this is so predictable. Can anybody really not acknowledge that once you think about it, there's really no good use for robots? We have humans. We don't need robots. And we don't need the technology that we have. It's simply too much. So we need to remember what Rudolf Steiner said. Work with the angel in your desire body. And when you do, you can counteract neurosis, psychosis, and the aberration of sex and violence that are created by turning away from the spirit.
Very good. Very good. I think it's a good time to close this down and call it a show. And I'd like to thank everyone that's tuned in and put up with us for another hour. Douglas, you've been very graceful in spending your time with me and our audience, and we appreciate your vast knowledge that the higher beings have bestowed upon you. And thank you to your lovely wife for putting all this together. And hopefully I won't be gone so long this time, but you can always reach us on Gab if you need us. And thank you, Douglas.
I love doing shows with you, Ron. Thank you so much, and thanks for keeping me out of the weeds.
I try. Bye now.